Hannah! Hannah! A voice called to her. A sweet, familiar voice from far away. Is that you, Mom? Hannah called. Time to come back, Miss Fairchild whispered. You must leave now, Hannah. It's time to come back. Okay, Mom. She gazed into the bedroom at Danny, lying peacefully on his pillow. He was fading away now, fading to gray. Hannah squinted into the solid grayness. The house, she knew, was fading. The earth was fading from her sight. Come back, Hannah, her mother whispered. Come back to us now. Hannah could feel herself floating now, and as she floated, she gazed down, her last look at earth. I can see him, Mom, she said excitedly, brushing the tears off her cheeks. I can see Danny, in his room, but the light is getting faint, so faint. Hannah, come back to us, her mother whispered, calling her home. Danny, remember me, Hannah cried, as Danny's face appeared clearly in misty gray. Could he hear her? Could he hear her calling to him? She hoped so. The Ghost Next Door by R.L. Stine. It is the saddest book in the entire Goosebumps original lineup of the 62. I mean, it's hard to argue with the fact that it is the saddest and that something couldn't be sadder, because most of the books, of course not all, a lot of the books too have some emotional beats in them. I won't say they don't. But this one in particular, it really pulls at your heartstrings. This one actually can make you cry. Like, literally, a lot of people have said this one has made them cry. And, you know, as a kid, you go in just reading Goosebumps ready for like a spook tale, you know? Something really spooky, but this one gets to you. It really does. It's about, if you haven't read it, I highly suggest you read it first. However, this one right here, it is about a girl who doesn't really understand what's going on, where her family is, or why this shadow entity is following her and Danny, and why it's trying to kill Danny and things like that. And at the end of the entire book, I mean, she ends up saving Danny pretty much. But at the same time, finding out that she has been dead for a long time. And her house has been abandoned. Her family has been gone. She's been left there alone, abandoned. Not necessarily abandoned by her family, but she just didn't know that she had passed on. And she needed to stay so that she could save Danny, because basically throughout the book, the shadow entity is preying on Danny, wanting to kill him, because it's kind of a weird exactly, but it's like this shadow thing wants to kind of become his ghost or take his place in some way. And so he's trying to kill Danny, Hannah's newfound friend. So Hannah rescues him, and after she rescues him, she basically is able to move on into heaven. She was meant to stay there for a reason, to save her friend, and she did. And that is so touching. Knowing her life is over, her family has passed away. You know, of course she is too, but her friend is still alive, and he has a family. And she wants him to keep on living and go throughout his whole life. And, you know, she cries at the end because she knows she can't be with Danny anymore. You know, their friendship was very wholesome. It was very sweet. It was awesome. I mean, it was just like this new friend she found, and she had to leave him so soon, it felt like. And, you know, Danny's left there without her too, and I've heard some people say that they think that Hannah might come visit him. You know, in part of their headcanon, they say that Hannah probably does come to visit him, or at least watches him and see how he's doing and things like that. And, you know, she could very well do that. She could be watching him from heaven, just as we hope our loved ones are doing the same. It's just so sweet. And I'm gonna get into some similarities as well with some other tales. For instance, R.L. Stine liked to take a lot of inspiration from books he's read or movies and things like that. And funnily enough, some of his books literally seem to have a Are You Afraid of the Dark tie in, even though that episode was made before the book. So maybe R.L. Stine has seen it, who knows? I've seen some people trying to say, however, this book has an Are You Afraid of the Dark similar episode, that being Tale of the Lonely Ghost. I have to admit, I just don't see it being that similar. There are some similarities, of course, but I don't fully believe it's really as similar as some other ones could be to other books. Well, let's put it this way. Now, I don't remember all the names of the kids and characters, but we'll go ahead and just say what kind of happens in the episode. So, a girl is staying basically with her aunt and her cousin for the summer because her parents are off going to look at rock carvings and things like that from Native Americans, the Inuit tribes or something like that. Well, her cousin is not very nice. She doesn't really want to hang out with her. She thinks he's kind of a loser. And she's like, look, if you want to hang out with me and my friends, I'll let you. But you have to stay in the haunted house over at the right beside our house, basically. And that house is actually for sale. It's been for sale for a while. And her mother is the realtor for it, actually. And she can't get anyone to buy it because they just feel a strange presence from that house. Right there, right here. There's a similarity there. There's an abandoned, burnt house in the ghost next door, of course. That is Hannah's former family home. This house, however, doesn't really seem to be dilapidated or destroyed. It just kind of seems to be abandoned. Seems pretty okay to me to be abandoned. But anyway. There is a nanny who lives in the house of the aunt and cousin, and she actually came from that house before. She actually lived in that house before. I don't think they necessarily know that, but the cousin thinks that there's some tie between her and the house, and she hates the nanny. But the girl who came to visit her cousin and aunt, she doesn't understand why the cousin hates her. And she's like, well, you're kind of rude for that, but whatever. Eventually, the girl has to go sleep in the house so that she can hang out with the cousin and her friends, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, she's sent to the house at night to sleep alone. She was told this whole ghost story about how there was a girl who lived there, and basically bullies trapped her inside the room in there, and she died. Presumably because she got locked in there and couldn't get out, because she said she never escaped, so I'm assuming she starved to death or something. I'm not sure, but she did die. Well, she goes to the house by herself. She goes to sleep in the house. Well, she ends up running back to her cousin's house because she ends up seeing a ghost in the mirror. And the next morning, the aunt, finds out that the girls were over there, at least the one girl was, and she makes the two girls go there and clean the house because I guess she saw that they were over there. She went to go investigate and saw "help me" all across the walls. There was just "help me, help me, help me, help me" all over the walls drawn, and she blamed the two girls for doing it. Of course, they didn't do that. It was the ghost. So they go and they clean the whole. Well, they go to clean it, I'll say. But as soon as they get there, the cousin sees like a bunch of stuffed animals and dolls at the mirror. So she said, "Oh my gosh, she has such a big collection, bigger than mine. I'm gonna go inside the mirror." And she just goes inside the mirror, like, okay, that's crazy. I wouldn't do that. Who knows where that portal will lead to? Anyway, the ghost pops back in the mirror, and she ends up coming out, and she can't talk, by the way, and she shows like a little locket of Well, she shows a locket and somehow gets across that she wants it to be given to the nanny or the nanny to come back in the house. Because guess what? The nanny is the ghost girl's mother. Well, she's brought back to the house, and the ghost girl and her mother are reunited. they decide they're gonna go into the mirror together to live in some other reality where they're both alive. So there's kind of a similarity with the ghost next door there, where Hannah is then reunited with her family. But you see what I mean? The story's very different than the actual story of the book, I believe, in my opinion. I just don't see too much similarities there. There's a few other Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes where there could be some similarities. But this book here is not so similar. That's what brings me to Silent Hill 2, the video game. One of you actually pointed out that there is a lot of similarities between The Ghost Next Door by R.L. Stine and Silent Hill 2, the video game. And, you're right. There is a lot of similarities. And Silent Hill 2 came out in the 2000s after the book. The book came out in the 90s, of course. Well, interesting that it came out in the 2000s. The creators definitely could have had inspiration from the book, though probably was not the case. I'm sure that probably didn't happen, but could have. James, the protagonist in Silent Hill 2, arrives in the town of Silent Hill shortly after receiving a mysterious letter that seemed to be from his wife, Mary. In this letter, it states that Mary is waiting for James in their special place, as she calls it, and our protagonist goes throughout the game searching for her in the haunted town of Silent Hill, blurring the lines between reality and surrealism. The town is in a state of nightmare, a strange realm James has walked through. And for Hannah, she is in a false reality, as she and her family had succumbed to the flames in their own home. Hannah is in a constant state of quote-unquote denial, as she doesn't know she is really a ghost until the end of the story. Well, James is also in a state of denial, as we find out that he had murdered his wife not that long ago. He is actively searching for someone whom he killed. Hannah is actively trying to live even though she is already dead. James has to face his sins, and Hannah has to move on. Hannah saves her friend, and James faces the harsh reality he killed the one he loved. There's a lot of points inside the book where Hannah believes that the ghost is actually Danny, that Danny is a ghost. Danny's mother can't even hear her whenever she is trying to talk to her because she's deaf, and she thinks that this is creepy and weird and all that and doesn't understand why, or maybe she's being rude, but later on finds out that she's deaf. There's a lot of like twists and turns inside the book that lead down to the end of course, Danny not being the ghost and Hannah being the ghost. This book is just, even if you know the story about what's going to happen before, like I unfortunately did, I wish I didn't, but I did. I still read it and enjoyed it all the way through. And let's get into it. Let's figure out at the end of the book, does she come back to visit Danny? If you love someone so much, then yeah, and she did love him. And she wanted to see him have a good life. She wanted him to live on. Of course, she comes back and visits him in some ways. But they don't ever get to see each other, I have to say. Well, I'll tell you all a story which I don't love to talk about. It's not very easy to talk about, but this story, The Ghost Next Door, could be a very heartwarming story for people who've experienced something tragic in their life, like I unfortunately did in my teenage years in high school. Well, one of my very, very good friends, I won't name his name, he ended up committing something that he shouldn't have done, which unfortunately took him away from this world. And, it's not good, it's not fun, it's not pretty, there's nothing good about it. I believe he went to heaven, of course. After this, God is merciful. I won't get too much into that, but I will say I was visited by him multiple times in a way afterwards. He would appear in my dreams. We would talk to each other. We would hang out. I would be like, why did you do that? You could have just talked to me. Everything could have been fine. Um, you know, Everything could be okay. And in the dream, he would always talk to me and be like, you know what, you're right. Let's change this. Let's take it back. You know, it's hard to talk about these things, but that did end up happening, and he visited me in that way. He would give me certain signs in the real world that I was on the right track or that he was there in some way. I mean, his favorite song was Fireflies by Owl City. And after, this unfortunate incident happened, I would hear that song all the time, everywhere. Just always play every now and then, just, turn on. And I know he's here still with me, watching me, in a way, And I believe that's what Hannah is doing for Danny as well. And that just leaves the story so beautiful and tragic and heartwarming. I keep saying these keywords because that really is what it is. And R.L. Stine, of course, said that his only moral in the story is to run. Of all his books, he never writes from the heart. He just writes from his head. He just puts it down on paper and he sends it out. Whether intentional or unintentional, as he claims it to be, these stories have morals in them. It's crazy. They do. And I think it's because, in our human psyche, we just can't help but to put these things in the book. We can't help to put these things in a film, in a show, or something like that. If we create art, there's always something in it. There is always something in it. And you can, of course, read all these books here and watch all your movies and your TV shows and just enjoy them and not worry about subplots or things like that, and just straight up horror or straight up romance or whatever it is, and you can just enjoy them the way they are, the way they were written, the way they were portrayed, the way they are showed upon you. But if you want, you can dig deep in it. I'll be right back. You see this right here? Invisible Ghost, with Bela Lugosi in it. And Polly Ann Young, by the way, which was actually Lerda Young's sister, and this was her last film she ever did. So that's very interesting. Anyway, Bela Lugosi's in this. Awesome as ever. This right here is literally just a schlocky horror movie where Bela goes around strangling people after he sees his wife outside his window, because his wife left him for his friend, and this angers him and turns him insane for a few moments until he gets that kill, that stranglehold on someone. This right here, that's all it was meant to be. It was just meant to be a schlocky horror film produced by Sam Katzman under Banner Productions within Monogram Studios. One of my favorite Poverty Row studios to date ever, just period. I love Monogram so much. I dig deep into this movie every time I watch it. It is so sad that this man loved his wife so much that if he sees her outside his window, he gets so angered that she could leave him, that he can't control himself, and he just has to let it out somehow. And, I'd love to dig deeper on that into another video. This is about the ghost next door. That's what I want to say right there with Goosebumps, period. R.L. Stine might not write from the heart, but what he writes can be dug deep into, can be ripped apart and looked inside of. You can just crack that open with a hammer, and you can just open up that rock and see all of its data right there. All of it right there. Just like a geologist. We'll be a geologist. We'll crack it open with a hammer, and we'll date this rock. We'll see where it was from. We'll see how it became. We'll see all of that. Because this is a piece of physical media. It has words in it. Of course it has words in it. No duh, right? This has words. It all means something. There's always something you can dig into with any type of art, and this is one of the cases. And that's why this is so in-depth it feels, even though it was never meant to be like that. It's just meant to be a spooky horror story, sure, with a sad ending. Of course, R.L. Stine knew it was going to be a sad ending, but whether he likes it or not, he wrote something there that could mean something to a lot of people. And to me too, of course, as my story I told you all about earlier. And I'm sure other people can relate to that as well. This just has to be one of my favorite R.L. Stine books, period. Do you hear the storm outside? We're getting in deep. R.L. Stine, you wrote something here that means a lot to people. You wrote something here that is deep. It's emotional. It's beautiful. It's great. Hannah will always remember Danny, and Danny will always remember his friend Hannah. He will grow up. He will have a family of his own. And I'm sure he will tell his wife, his children, about his childhood and his story about his best friend Hannah, who unfortunately passed away. She was never there when he was in the neighborhood, as she had passed away before then. And he knows that she was there to protect him, to save him, to put him on the right track. And she did. And she went. And now, he is alive, he's well, and he's happy. All thanks to Hannah. From the ghost next door.